Me. So I'd like to start with Jason Marco, who's at Sydney University, and I can't remember your role. You're head of something, right?
Assistive technology.
And we've got some strange thing cobbled together, so Jason's going to be able to do what he wants to do. So if you welcome Jason, he's going to give us a walk through JAWS.
Yep.
Concept. Yay!
Okay.
Yes.
Do I need to use that or?
Yeah, do use it because I think like down the back and it's helpful.
My name's Jason. I work as the Assistive Technology Lead at the University of Sydney. My role within the university is to support staff and students with disabilities, so we provide different technology options for people with disabilities like low vision and blindness, physical disabilities, learning disabilities, and so on. The other thing I do within the university is to do accessibility testing using the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. We look at websites. We test with assistive technologies, and we also get students who use assistive technologies in to test. And today I was asked to talk to you about screen readers. I have a number of staff and students who I work with that use screen readers, and I'll just get right into it. So the things I wanted to talk to you about today, there's three main components to the talk. First of all, just an introduction to screen readers. I know you all come from different backgrounds, and so I'm trying to keep it pretty broad. But the things I'm going to be talking about is basically what they are, how they work, how people use them, what design considerations you need to take into account regarding screen readers, what inclusive design things are important. And then I'm just going to finish up with a screen reader demo. Unfortunately, I don't have a great connection from my laptop for the projector, so it's actually going to be an audio-only demo, so you'll have to listen very carefully. Screen reader basics. So a screen reader is essentially just a bit of software that converts screen text into synthetic speech or Braille. For the Braille part, it does this via a refreshable Braille display, which is a device that hooks into the computer, works in tandem with the screen reader, and it has a row of little cells with tiny pins that stick up to form Braille. As the user navigates the system, it displays different Braille characters. This particular one is used by one of our PhD students. They cost around $6,000, so they're pricey. Not everyone who uses a screen reader uses a Braille display. Not everyone who uses a screen reader can read Braille, and there's the cost consideration as well. Screen readers come in a lot of different forms, so I think it's important to note that someone who uses a screen reader, who needs a screen reader because they can't use a computer without one, needs screen reading or text-to-speech on pretty much any device they use. So for the desktop, you've got the industry-leading screen reader for Windows, JAWS, which I'll show you today. That's a commercial application. You've got an excellent open-source screen reader called NVDA, which is actually developed in Australia. VoiceOver is a really powerful and feature-rich screen reader built right into the Mac operating system. On mobile, Android has TalkBack. iOS also has VoiceOver, and the iOS version and the desktop version work in very similar ways, which is handy. Screen readers also come as browser extensions, so Chromevox is an example of that. The limitation of Chromevox is that it can really only read content within the web page, so it can't read things within the operating system. Screen readers have some basic common features, so the ability to work with different voices. Screen readers have natural sounding voices, which are easy on the ear, and they have what most people hear when they fire up a screen reader, which is a really robotic sounding voice. People that use screen readers like to read at very high speeds, so some of the more experienced users I work with will read at around 300 words per minute, which if you're sitting next to them is pretty hard to follow. Sorts of things that you can do in a screen reader, ability to vary speed, select different voices, choose verbosity levels. So this is how much information is relayed back to you as you navigate through a system. So it's things like tutor messages and so on. So when focus is in a search field, it will tell you what sort of functionality or what sort of keys you can use. You can choose settings for how you process things on web pages like images and graphics, whether it announces graphics without text alternatives and so on. And there's a lot more features to screen readers. The two things that I see people fiddling with most of all are the speech settings. So they might use the robotic sounding speech when they're reading through web pages, and the more natural sounding speech when they're doing a bit of light reading, I guess, or reading an ebook. And the verbosity levels. And when you start up a screen reader, it will usually take you through a startup wizard where you kind of set these basic things. And most people I work with only change the very basic settings in their screen reader. They also have features which allow you to get quick access to content. So I'll talk a little bit about this later on, but VoiceOver, the rotor, which is VoiceOver on iOS 7, has the rotor, which is a way of quickly getting access to different content on web pages. You can use it to, if you just want to navigate by headings or links or form controls. JAWS has very similar features, so the ability to produce lists of elements on web pages allows the user to quickly jump to the content they need. So now I want to speak a bit about screen reader interaction. Who's used a screen reader? Quite a few. Good. The first time you load a screen reader, it can be pretty baffling. So the pattern of interaction changes. Suddenly, you're hearing a lot of things being announced to you which don't make a whole lot of sense. It's usually reading pretty quickly. You don't know how to control focus. It's hard to keep track of where focus is going in an application or on a web page. The screen reader interaction for desktops is primarily keyboard driven. And a lot of people talk about the importance of keyboard accessibility. Although screen readers do have some support for the mouse, so you can either emulate the mouse in a program like JAWS, or NVDA will read from the mouse pointer. This is not how screen readers are commonly used. Most people that use desktop screen readers or screen readers on laptops are using the keyboard. So if you're building interfaces that rely on mouse inputs, you're effectively excluding screen reader users. And other people with physical disabilities who use keyboards or alternative input devices, such as switches. Screen readers can only focus on very small units of content at a time. And they also tend to linearize content, particularly on web pages. So this is a screenshot of the University of Sydney homepage. The image below is the output of Fangs, which is a screen reader emulator for Firefox, which you can get as an extension. So this kind of gives you a picture of what a screen reader does to a web page. So screen readers, users when they get to a web page where they're using an application, the screen reader can only report things one by one. So it takes time for the user to, I guess, develop a mental model of what's on the page and what's in the application and what features are available to them. There are easy ways of helping screen readers along, so some of you might be familiar with ARIA. ARIA can be used to, add structure to a page, so you can take something like a div, which has no semantic value for a screen reader, you give it a role, and this describes areas of content to the screen reader, and it also gives them an alternative way of navigating the page. So you can, in VoiceOver for instance, you can navigate by landmarks on pages. Sorry, just need to go. Also, some other basic considerations for screen readers. Screen readers can't work out what's in an image based on its appearance. They need a text alternative. Most people will be familiar with alt text. They need different ways of conveying structure and organization to the user. So things like semantic markup on web pages is really important. Headings, paragraphs, lists, links, they help describe the structure and organization of the page, and also give the user a way to navigate through the page. Other things that are important are adding captions and table headers for data tables. So when the user is in a cell in a table, they can see what table headers that relates to. And form inputs need label elements. So when you tab through a form field, the screen reader user needs to know what is required in the field. And in HTML, this is done through the HTML label element, which if you use the label for and match it to the ID of the control, when the user tabs through the field, it tells the user what they need to put in that form. You can do a lot of cool stuff with forms in ARIA too. when you're building web pages or applications, you need to think about things like focus. So an example of where focus often comes unstuck on the web is modal dialog. So when the screen reader hits a button on a web page and it opens the dialog, does the screen reader's focus go to the dialog? Often when I'm testing web pages, the focus stays on the background page. The content of the dialog is at the bottom of the source, so the screen reader has to go all the way to the bottom of the source to read the information in the dialog. Ideally, when you hit the button and the dialog opens, you want the screen reader to follow the focus. You want to restrict the focus to the screen reader so it doesn't move outside of the dialog, and so on. So those are the basic things I wanted to talk through. You can look online for things that are common barriers for screen reader users. This is one of the students I work with who's doing a PhD, Wayne Hawkins. He has blindness and uses a screen reader, he uses JAWS. And he started a campaign to kill CAPTCHA, which is one of the most troublesome things for screen reader users. Really hard I find CAPTCHA hard to use without a vision impairment. When you're just listening to the audio and trying to discern the words you're meant to type in the field, it's really hard. WebAIM is a really great website for web accessibility and just accessibility more broadly. Every year they conduct a survey of screen reader users about their preferences and things that are troublesome on the web. And this is the results of the 2012 survey. So it kind of identified, this was over 1,700 screen reader users replied to the survey, and I guess it just points out some of the things that screen readers find difficult. Inaccessible flash, ambiguous links, so pages would just click here, click here, click here. If you're doing a list links on a page and all you get is a series of click here's, you really don't know what to do. Complex data tables and so on. Keyboard accessibility is also up there. So I wanted to try and give you a demo now of the JAWS screen reader. Unfortunately, you can't follow along with the screen, but I'll just try to show you some things anyway, and we'll see how it goes. So.
Do you know where your speaker is on that?
Good job.
Is there an audio lead? Audio. Yep. I can just put it. Yeah, no, we were hoping about for the HTML.
I've got is there anything to comment?
Yeah.
Switch this on.
If it's just audio, just hold the mic up to it.
That's what I'm going to try. Where's your...
I'll just...
That's cool. Let's just let's have a speaker of him.
What was the other connection? VGA or mini HDMI? What's that?
Yeah. HTML is smaller.
So I'll just be a second.
Do we want to try the video thing as well?
Oh, no, we're just going to go play audio.
So what do you need? What do you need? What do you need?
A mini HDMI to HDMI.
Go on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there you go.
Maxwell. Of course. All we needed to do is just put a shout out to the audience.
That's silly of me. I should have asked who has a mini HDMI to HDMI converter. And someone actually does. too many.
That's too many.
Oh, it's too many. Maybe it's MIDI. Oh, we got that one, but no.
Maybe we'll just have to go with the audio.
We'll just go with audio.
Go with the audio.
Yeah. So if you just make some sounds.
Otherwise we're going to run out of time. Kick everybody out and we'll be sad.
Can you turn the red
Pause for Windows is ready. Start button to open. Press enter.
Sounds like it's down here.
Okay.
Windows N. Folder view list view. Not selected. Recycle bin. 1 of 23. To move the item, use the arrow keys. To edit the selected item, press F2. Folder view list view. Not selected. Recycle bin. 1 of 23. To move the item, use the arrow keys. To edit the selected item, press F2.
There it is. Shall we try that?
Windows N.
Is that
No?
audible at all? It's very, yeah, it is expensive. Around 1,400, I think, for the professional version.
Software to download on your machine.
Yeah, you can download it as a trial though. It's a permanent trial, but it times out in 40 minutes and you have to reboot the machine. NVDA is a good option as a distributor to play around with in text.
So it makes it rather expensive for people to actually...
Yeah, so luckily if the student comes to uni, we can provide them with the software and so on, keep them updated.
So there's no captions, you can do questions and answers and try and fill in the time.
Yeah.
Keep them occupied.
Yep.
Hang on. Let's try one.
Does anyone have any questions while we're trying to sort this out?
Microphone. They can't hear.
Give that a go. Can we hit something?
Start button to open. Press enter.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds a little bit weird, but we'll give it a go anyway. So I'm running, I'll need to be able to sort of see the screen. Otherwise I'll lose track. So I'm running JAWS, which is one of the commercial applications. JAWS is probably the industry-leading screen reader for Windows. And I don't know exactly how this is going to go because I was hoping you'd be able to see what was going on and I could explain things. But just listen along and we'll see how we do. So this is running on Windows 7. So basically use JAWS through the keyboard. So if I want to get to the desktop, I just hit Windows M.
Windows 10, desktop, folder view, list view, not selected, recycle bin, 1 of 23. To move the items, use the arrow keys. To edit the selected item, press F2.
Okay, so JAWS tells me where I am. Currently tells me what element I'm on or which element has focus. And it gives me some additional information about the location, such as how many icons are on the screen. And it gives me a tutor message, which is this is how you move around and use the arrow key. So it's really pretty straightforward.
I think this is actually a really good way to do this because none of you can see what's going on here, which is the way that it's used.
Yep.
Adobe Digital Advanced, Audacity, and Tagus.
So when screen readers are exploring an interface, there's two ways they do it. They either use the tab key or the arrow keys. When you tab, in Windows at least, you're moving around to different parts of an interface or different links in a web page. Use the arrow keys usually when you get into a control, so it kind of moves you through the different parts of the control. What I wanted to do is show you how a screen reader reads a Word document and then maybe show you how it reads on the web. So I've got a document here. And this was prepared for one of our students who's a law student who's has blindness, also uses the JAWS screen reader. So it has a little bit of accessible markup. It uses headings, and this just. Okay. So if you use JAWS in particular or NVDA, one of the first keys you should learn how to use is Control. So if you press Control, it stops the speech. All right. So I'll just arrow down in the document for it to start reading.
Page 3. Heading level 1 and temporary challenges.
So it tells me that something's a heading.
We live in a Euro-dramatic political economic challenges. The last 3.
And what I'll do from here is just to speed up the voice. So just to give you some idea of how fast people actually use screen readers when they're reading text.
This is not bullshit.
This is actual. People really do. I don't know how they do it. I can't do it. I guess it's just a sensory skill that you develop when you have vision impairment. Okay. So I spoke a little bit about how JAWS screen readers need quick ways to get to things because of the way focus works and so on, and the fact that they can only read small parts of things at a time. So some screen readers have special support for certain applications. So JAWS has special support for Microsoft Word. I can turn on quick keys in Microsoft Word. Actually, before I do that, I think I need to slow the voice down. So.
Comprehend at that speed.
They do. Yeah, it's amazing. I don't know how they do it, but they do. The robotic. Sorry.
I was going to say, without the dictionary, you wouldn't get it in say, English language. It sounds to me like the words are blending in there. How do they differentiate between word to word, or is it because
I wish I knew. Yeah, I don't know how they do it. I think it's a skill. But I know if you take a word and you mix the letters in the center around, you're still able to discern what the word is. I don't know how that works, but I guess it's a similar sort of thing with screen reader.
It's only faster, it's not.
Yeah, and that's why this voice in particular is so important to screen reader users. It's called eloquence. It's the one that comes with JAWS. Some of the more natural sounding voices, when you read at very high speed, they don't stick together very well. They tend to blend in. Whereas JAWS remains very kind of sharp and clear at those higher speeds.
So as what you're saying, it is actually sped up. Like high speed reading. Like my normal voice is sped up to the point where there is actually a diction in there, but it's just so fast that I couldn't reproduce it with that computer.
Like it's not like you chipmunk, where it changes. It's just faster. There's no change in pitch.
Character 111.
So with quick keys, I can navigate by whatever structural markup there is within the document. So if I want to go to headings, I just press H. I don't know how easy that is to follow.
Information and communication technologies are critical in promoting it.
I can read by word.
And communication technology R.
Or letter.
R, E, space, C.
I have the ability to select text, use all the sort of edit copy features that everyone else is accustomed to. What I'll do is show you a little bit of reading on the web.
All that for.
Cut the same page.
Windows F, accept red, drop Mozilla Firefox, enter. Mozilla Firefox, start page dash Mozilla Firefox, Windows D, desktop, folder view, list view, Mozilla escape, leaving menu. Alt tab, Mozilla Firefox, start page dash Mozilla Firefox, start page dash Alt D, navigate, W. Here S, selected, select enter, Google edit, type of text. The University of Sydney dash Mozilla Firefox.
It's gone into deep thought.
Yep.
Mine's a Mac, it doesn't need to think too much.
Alt D, the University of Sydney dash Mozilla Firefox. Navigation toolbar, search or enter address edit combo, Sydney.edit.o, the center value, use the arrow keys.
It's not.
Are you still on my computer?
Or did you go to...
Select the system, gray icon escape, the set. Notification overflow, the University of Sydney.
So it's working a bit slowly. So I just wanted to show you some of the things that a screen reader might be using when they get to a page. So the ability to list links, for instance, on a page like this.
Links list dialog, links list view, refine search, snap entrance, library, Mac, media, content, dates, escape.
The links on this page are grouped in list elements. So if I hit the L key, it will start jumping between those elements.
List of 2 items, list of 6 items, list of 6 items.
The problem with lists is that they don't really describe what's in the list. So what they've done on the staff intranet page is to use some landmark roles. So let's see if I can bring that up.
Links list items, snap and enter.
Just go to the staff intranet page. Sorry, my machine's taking a long time to put.
So would naming the lists make it easier?
I have to ask a web developer. I don't know if that would if they can be.
You could give it a class name, but I don't think you could.
You could give it a title,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure whether that would be picked up by a screen reader.
Or you can
Yeah.
use ARIA landmarks and label a list as
Oops.
navigation.
Yeah, but it's like two hands.
Oh,
Landmark roles is probably the way to do it. Well, sorry, my computer's crashed. I'm having a lot of technical difficulties today. My apologies.
We get the gist.
Yep.
Can you explain the landmarks concept a bit more?
Well, it's just a way of adding some semantic structure to a web page. So I think when they were being devised within ARIA, they were looking at the way people were setting up web pages, and like with navigation and main content areas and so on, and the way people were using divs. A div doesn't really give any semantic value to the screen reader. So when you add a role with a landmark role, such as role equals banner, that then describes whatever is within that div to the screen reader.
Do you want us to show?
Yeah.
I think Alex and
if you go to inspect element.
Sorry, my name's Alex and this is Greg here, and we are from the Sydney University Web and Digital Development team, and we are the guys who are actually responsible for this.
Yep.
Really well structured.
Well, no, it is actually, we've spent a lot of time and effort making this as readable to vision impaired people as possible. And the thing with ARIA landmarks is that there are a number of elements within the HTML5 spec which have an intrinsic role already on them. So by default, using things like the header tag and the nav tag, they already have a role on them. There are other elements, however, that you may want to actually explicitly define a role. And I'm just trying to think of an example. Do we have a role on the, sorry?
Are you talking about like role navigation?
Yeah, well, there you go, exactly there. So, part of the ARIA spec is a whole bunch of extra HTML attributes that you can add to your HTML to make it more readable to visually impaired people and useful for screen readers. And this here is exactly a example of that, and that helps the screen reader identify that particular navigation block as navigation. I believe, however, because that already is a nav element, that should already have explicitly got a role of navigation on it anyway, but there are other examples. Sorry?
Role banner.
Yeah, banner is a good one. Let me just have a look. It's difficult. Oh yeah, here we go, role banner. And that is, well, pretty much for your header. There are definitions as to what all these different roles mean. And I suggest you look them up. What I can do is I can send you links via the Meetup group or something like that. And have a look at what the specifications are. It looks a little daunting when you first jump into this sort of stuff, but it actually is not too bad. It's actually a little simple. There is a fair bit of grunt work required by yourself to help support screen readers. So sometimes a lot of the logic you have to do manually yourself using JavaScript, but I don't want to scare you. It is actually not that frightening, but it is a little bit of work. Anyway, I don't want to steal Jason's presentation. Sorry.
Is there any cheaper way than buying a screen reader to test this?
NVDA.
Yeah, well,
NVDA is a free open source screen reader for Windows that you can use for accessibility testing. It's pretty easy to use. That's one way of doing it. There's also a lot of toolbars that you can get for browsers which can quickly display some of the common accessibility errors on a page, such as the Wave toolbar or the Web accessibility toolbar for IE. Yep.
Has the a project like that been crowdsourced anywhere yet?
Yeah, I don't know.
NVIDIA is not for profit, isn't it?
Yeah, NVIDIA is not for profit. A lot of
they do
these
ask
tools,
donations.
the web accessibility toolbar was developed by Vision Australia, so they're all kind of free things that you can use.
I know. I was thinking from the community that uses those tools, would they, as a crowd, look at websites and rank them as that type of thing? In other words, if I had a website and I said, can you check this out for me? I'd have a heap of people who use the readers go and check it out for me.
That's a good question. I think, like on a website, occasionally people in the forums will post, can you have a look at my website, and it happens that way. There's the WCAG mailing list, where people post lots of questions about WCAG-related issues and accessibility issues, and then the experts feedback. There's also a usability testing tool called Loop 11. I don't know if you've heard about that, but they work with a group in the States that sources people that use screen readers and other AT, and you can actually, there's a fee, but you can get those people to test your website remotely using assistive technology and feedback.
If you use a Mac, VoiceOver is built in, it's free, and it works really, really well as a testing tool. By all means, do not just rely on VoiceOver, because JAWS is the market leader. So I very much recommend that you do also use JAWS to test your work, but VoiceOver is a good step in the right direction.
Sorry, wrap it up now? Yeah, okay. Thanks for having me. I hope it was useful, and thanks.